Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Red Light Sports Ramble. As always, my pleasure to come to you today. I'm joined with my co-host, Evan Watallison. Evan, it is Thursday, which means that we are in Packer preview mode against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. We had a good pre-chat about it. We've had some input from our listeners on Facebook, email, Twitter, about their keys to victory. And a lot of the keys to victory basically mirror what you and I were talking about. So when we look at this game, I'm going to throw this out before I turn it over to you. When I did my research statistically, on paper, the statistics for both teams are pretty even. Nobody is really dominant in one area or really bad in another area. Otherwise, they're both bad or they're both doing pretty well. When you look at the stats on NFL.com, statistically ranking the Falcons and Packers are pretty even. So on paper, this looks like it's going to be a pretty good game on Sunday. We all know that for Packer fans, it's a must-win. The Falcons are out of the playoffs. For the Packers, it's a must-win. This has to be a playoff atmosphere in Green Bay because if they lose, they're not mathematically eliminated, but nearly impossible at that point to hope that, depending on what the Lions do, for them to actually win the last three and make the playoffs. They need to win the last four and get some help as it is. But this is going to be playoff atmosphere, I believe, in Green Bay, Evan. On paper, it looks like it's going to be a good one. But I'm going to turn it over to you, as I always do on Thursday, your main keys to the game. And then I'm going to throw some questions at you, and hopefully I'll catch you off guard today. I have a hard time doing that. I never do it. But I'm going to still throw some questions at you.
Wake up early to catch me off guard.
But I'm going to turn it over to you, bud.
Looking at this game, you have the Atlanta Falcons, who are trying to stay out of the NFC South cellar, fighting with Tampa Bay for that last spot in the division. And you got the Packers, who are a game and a half out of the division lead, and they're fighting, as you said, for their playoff hopes. It's going to be, it's December, Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wisconsin, so it's going to be cold. There's a chance for snow. It could be windy. And it's going to basically come down to who controls the line of scrimmage. You said both teams are pretty even statistically, which, I guess I wish we could rewind to end of October when our defense was top 10 in the league, which now obviously they're in the bottom half of the league in defense. I think you said 26, if I'm not mistaken, right, overall?
Yeah, I'll double check it, but I have it in. Right now in passing we're 20th, so.
Yeah.
I'll check that while you're talking.
I believe you said we're 20. Okay. So I believe you said we're 26 overall on defense. I remember our time, it seems like forever ago, we were top 10. Well, when we were top 10, if the Packers' defensive line, your Johnny Jolly, B.J. Raji, Ryan Pickett, Mike Daniels, they were controlling the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball. So the Packers were top 5 in run defense then, due to them, and they got pretty good pressure on the quarterback then due to the defensive line. And if the defensive line can get back into that dominating mode and stop the run, stop Steven Jackson, if he is playing, I know he's been banged up off and on this year, and get pressure up the middle on Matt Ryan and make Matt Ryan uncomfortable, it should be a pretty good day for Green Bay. So the Packers do have a lot of talent on the defense. They just haven't been performing. And for them to win, that defense has to perform, especially on the defensive line. They have to be able to put pressure on the wide receivers and knock them off the routes. I've been preaching that for the past few weeks. Let's force the receivers out for the routes and screw up the timing with the quarterback. I would like to see that as the keys to victory. And then the offensive line for the Packers, which could be in flux this week with Dietrich-Smith possibly not playing. He returned to practice yesterday, but unfortunately rolled an ankle in practice yesterday as well, and he did not practice today. So on top of the knee injury, he now has an ankle injury. And David Bakhtiari, for some reason, I haven't heard why, sat out practice today, as well as Ryan Pickett did as well. But Ryan Pickett doesn't surprise me. He's, a veteran, probably just giving him a break. But they need the offensive line to control their side of the line of scrimmage to open holes for Eddie Lacy and to give Matt Flynn time to make progressions and get the football out of there so he doesn't just center in on one guy, which he did on Thursday. He just zoned in on Jordy Nelson, and that's the only way he was looking. So if Nelson wasn't there, he didn't know what to do. They got pressure on him. He got sacked. So win the battles up front on the line of scrimmage. The corners have to knock the Atlanta receivers off their line. And last but not least, Tony Gonzalez. He's a crafty veteran. For whatever reason, being one of the only threats Atlanta even has on offense, he always finds a way to get open. So they have to slow down Tony Gonzalez. So those are my keys to victory. Control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Bump the receivers, get them off their routes, screw up that timing, and somehow slow down Tony Gonzalez.
Well, and I'm going to touch on controlling the line of scrimmage because I will get into my key, but I wanted to throw the numbers out defensively. The Packers are actually 24th in the league, Evan. The Falcons are 26th. So this
was one of the two.
Yeah, I was throwing those numbers at you quite quickly in the pre-chat. You know, the biggest thing that you're talking about is that we do need to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And what this will do, and I think the biggest key to the game, and this is the stat I'm going to look at the end of the game, when the final score is, whatever that is, whoever controls time of possession in this game is going to win. Both of these defenses are just playing horrid right now. And I think there's some opportunities for the Packers. But you've hit it on the head. My only key to this game is the time of possession, which comes down to what you're saying, controlling the line of scrimmage. If we can't establish Eddie Lacy, and one of our contributors, Ashley, who has been sending in numerous topics and things to us all this week, which is greatly appreciated, mentioned it in an email that we need to establish Eddie Lacy. Well, that starts with the line. And what you're telling me, Evan, concerns me. If Bakatari can't play and Dietrich-Smith can't play, let's talk about this for just a minute. Both of us understand we've got to...
Do we have to?
Yeah, we have to. I'm sorry. We have to talk about this because it's so key. It's been the problem, and now here we go again. An offensive line that is in flux.
The human turnstile.
Yeah, well, what did I tell you? Well, let's talk about before I get into my to saying what I think of Mr. Newhouse. Where I'm going with this is, let's hope and pray Dietrich-Smith just tweaked it and just sat out for precautionary measures after he heard it. Let's hope Bakatari, it was just maybe a virus or something that is not going to force him out of the game. But let's now look at the pessimistic side. You have no Dietrich-Smith. You have no Bakatari. What is this line going to shape up to look like, Evan? Give the listeners what that line will look like if those two players are out of there.
Well, what you're probably going to end up seeing, and Lord help us, is you're going to have probably Barclay bumping in the guard. You're going to have Derek Sherrod at one of the tackles. You're going to have Marshall Newhouse at the other tackle. And you're going to have T.J. Langan at center, which T.J. Langan at center, obviously he's not my first choice there, but I'm okay with Lang having to play center. Okay. And I'm okay with Barclay having to play guard. But Derek Sherrod at one of the tackles concerns me because he played about 6 snaps on Thursday, so we don't know what his conditioning looks like. For right now, we don't. As you were talking in pre-chat, you don't know if he's ready to play a full game yet. And Marshall Newhouse, as I refer to him, as he's a turnstile. He's a revolving door. He, for whatever reason, he's gotten worse rather than better over these past couple years. He was at least serviceable back in their Super Bowl run. He was serviceable, but since then he's just gone downhill for whatever reason. So if it is Marshall Newhouse and it is Derek Sherrod on playing offensive line, it's going to be a very long day.
Yeah, it might be another one of those days where I need to bring out a bunch of adult beverages by the halftime. unfortunately. So
Yeah.
I'm going to touch on a couple things you said there about the offensive line. I like Sherrod. I think that, when we drafted him, I liked the pick. I think he's got some potential to be a very good lineman for the Packers. Unfortunately, when he got his chance, he had a horrific leg injury. I mean, that thing was just horrific. And I know that he wasn't ready to go in the beginning of the year. You and I talked about it. Why did we save the roster spot? I mean, we're looking at it in training camp that this guy was still rehabbing, Evan, when the season started.
Yeah.
And so my big...
Well, we didn't necessarily use the roster spot on him because he spent most of the beginning of the year on the PUP list.
Yeah.
And then use up a roster spot.
I understand.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I understand, all of those things. But where I'm going with this is, like you said, I truly am concerned about being able to actually have his health for the whole time. That is a big thing for me. He hasn't been able to actually play a whole game, and so it concerns me. What if he gets hurt? Does that make sense? And I'm going to tell you, bud.
It does, and then
before you go on, we're going to have one technical error on this because we only have 3 minutes left on this show for some reason. So what I'm going to tell the viewers is I still have the iPhone going, so we will continue with our talk. But, Evan, I'm going to have to call you back when we go off the air on Blog Talk Radio. So, unfortunately, a technical error, and I'm not sure why it happened, but it definitely is only showing me 3 minutes left. But we're not done. So my concern here, though, with Sherrod is, can he make the whole game? And what happens if he gets hurt again? Now who are we going to put in there? So I'll let you wrap up with that thought, and then when we're off the air, I'll give you a quick call back, and we'll finish up on the phone. But where are we going to go? What if Sherrod can't make the whole game? Then what happens?
Well, then they would bump Barclay back up to tackle and put I forget his name. He played some guard on Thursday when Newhouse was so ineffective. His name escapes me at the moment. They would put, I think, Lane Taylor.
Yep, Lane Taylor.
They would put him in at guard.
Yeah, you got it, Lane Taylor. And so we could be in some huge trouble right there. And to me, that is very much of a key. So let's hope and pray Dietrich-Smith, Bakatari can play. And then at that point, maybe we can establish Eddie Lacy. And when I look at those things, that is going to be very key. And then flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, like you're telling me, is that defensively, that line has to step up. Because we know our secondary play is so weak right now. But I think the secondary play can get better if we start getting some darn pressure on the quarterback. When we were a top 10 defense, like you said, Evan,
90 seconds.
We were getting pressure on the quarterback. We had actually, up till 2 weeks ago, led the league in sacks. Remember I told you that stat and my jaw dropped to the ground? Like, are you serious? But a lot of that
was a quite shocking stat.
A lot of that came early in the season, and we're still actually third in the league in sacks, but we didn't move from last week. Well, we had one. We got one on Thursday. But other than that, we haven't been getting the pressure.
Seconds.
And like I said, the way that our sacks have been coming lately, it seems to me are the rollout sacks when we actually tackle the quarterback when he breaks the pocket and he's trying to run for his life. And that's not the kind of pressure we want. We want to get hits on the quarterback. We want to have hits that are going to let the quarterback know, I'm going to be in your grill all day. And that's what we have to do with Matt Ryan. We have to pressure him because Matt Ryan, with his offensive line, we may be able to get some pressure and force some turnovers. What do you think about that?
I think we can. That Atlanta offensive line isn't very good. Clay Matthews and Nick Perry and Mike Daniels, Mike Neal, and
10 seconds.
They should be able to put some pressure on Ryan. If they can, that's going to help out the secondary tremendously, and it'll if they can slow down Atlanta on first and second down, force them into third and long situations, those guys should be having a field day with that offensive line. But that's key. If they can force them in third and long situations, that's going to force Atlanta into the 5 and 7 step drops, which will give the rush time to get there. If it's third and short, like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, then it's just going to be a quick 3-step drop, get the ball out to Gonzalez, get it out to White. Is it White that's the healthy one?
Yeah.
Yeah, get it out to White, get it out to Gonzalez. If they allow Atlanta to get into third and short situations, if they get in third and long, they should have a field day.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And just to keep you updated, I believe that live radio is done now, Evan, but I still have you on the line, so I'm just going to let this roll until we go. If the call gets dropped, I will give you a quick call back, and we'll finish up for our listeners.
Okay.
But
sounds good.
What I'm thinking, too, is being able to pressure the quarterback, we need to start forcing some 3-and-outs. Defensively, we have not been doing a good job with 3-and-outs. And if we can get just a couple, we don't have to do it every time. I'm not expecting a shutout. I'm not expecting them to have 100 yards total offense. But we have to, at certain times in the game, regain that momentum by forcing some 3-and-outs. And if we can force a couple 3-and-outs and then capitalize on offense and put together, and when I'm saying drives, Evan, and you can chime in or correct me if you think different, but what I'm saying here is, let's say we punt the ball and it's a touchback. They get the ball at the 20-yard line. We force a 3-and-out. We get the ball back maybe at our 35, 40-yard line, and we put together a drive to the 40, and we don't get points, but at least then we've switched the field position. Does that make sense where I'm going with that? We haven't been doing a good job of switching field position, because when we get the ball back, we're just giving a 3-and-out right back to them, and they're gaining the field position. So I don't know what you think about that thought that I have.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right in the head. If we can force them into the 3-and-outs and not let them drive the field, when we do force them to punt, we're controlling the field position battle. Because I don't trust, Matt Flynn if we have to go 85 to 90 yards every drive. If we get control, we can afford to punt. That's going to happen. We don't have to score every single time we touch the football. But if we can at least get the ball out to about the 50-yard line, punt it, pin them inside the 10, and then win that field position battle by forcing them into a 3-and-out, and keep them from driving too much down the field, then they're punting the ball back to us from inside their 20, and we should theoretically get the ball between our own 40 and our own 35-yard line, or 30-yard line. So I think we're nailing it right on the head. We have to win that field position battle.
And again, it goes back to your key to victory. That's the defensive line doing their job. If the defensive line can control that, get the pressure, and stop the run. I'm not impressed with Steven Jackson in Atlanta this year. You and I talked about this a couple times.
I'm so glad we did not sign him.
I know you and I talked about this, that the fans were. And I remember some of my buddies. I was with them, and they're like, "Oh, if we don't get Jackson, I'm like, why do we need Jackson? Why would we want to over? And this goes back to what we're talking about with Ted Thompson. He doesn't overspend. I think he made a great decision not signing Jackson. So I'm going to give him props on that one.
He did.
And I argued, and I really thought my one friend was going to punch me in the face. But I said, Jackson has so much, and I believe you said it too in one episode, so much wear and tear on those tires when he was in St. Louis, because that's all they had. It showed this year. It showed as he tired down, got hurt. I'm not impressed with that running game, so I think we have to have good gap discipline. We've got to play in our lanes. We've got to tackle, and we've got to just give Jackson.
Get off blocks.
Yeah, we have to get off the blocks and make the tackle. No more arm tackling. If I see another arm tackle, Evan, I may just throw my adult beverage across the room. I mean, I am tired of seeing.
Don't do that. Throw your remote across the room or something. Don't throw the adult beverage across the room. That's abuse.
Yeah, I know that's abuse, but that's my frustration. That's where I'm going with this. Is that
I feel you.
You know, arm tackling, that goes back, and we keep all of our rambles tie in to what we've been talking about for 2 weeks. That's a coaching thing. You know, you've got to coach it up, coach it the right way, get these guys disciplined, then it's the player's fault. So I give blame to both on the arm tackling thing. Put yourself in a position to make the right tackle. You know, we pay you a lot of money to...
They're not doing their job, put somebody else in that's going to do their job.
Exactly. So, you know, that's my frustration. But I think, you know, that's really all I have on my keys to the game is just touching on your line of scrimmages, both of them. Unfortunately, we've got to pray for that offensive line to at least be somewhat healthy and to be able to get Dietrich-Smith in. Like I said, I don't mind Lang playing center. He's not a natural center, but he's done okay when he's been in there. The problem I have is, what are we doing with the other people on the line? You know, that's where all the moving comes in. That's where the inconsistent play comes from. And then I didn't get a chance to before because I had seen the technical difficulty. But at that point, when we put Newhouse in there, like you said, the turnstile guy, and I was making reference to he's like a cheap paper towel at Dollar General. It gets wet and it breaks. Doesn't hold any. Well, it holds stuff. He does hold, but it gets right by him. And it's just frustrating to even see him lined up out there because all I can do is just watch his man and hope that he doesn't tee off on our quarterback. I mean, he barely gets out of his stance by the time that guy's over the line of scrimmage. He gets no push whatsoever off of the line. And I'm just, again, the word is frustrated with it. So we'll pray with that. But you had a nifty little thing you were going to talk about, give 2 scenarios as we lead into our predictions about Rodgers playing, Rodgers not playing. So I'm going to turn that back over to you and let the listeners hear about this little scenario that you have going on.
Yeah, see, I'm giving 2 predictions today. One prediction, if by some miracle number 12 is able to run through that tunnel in uniform, and the other one is as we expect, number 10 is going to be playing quarterback for us on Sunday. So I'm going to start with if Rodgers plays. If Rodgers, by some chance, which he did practice again today in full pads, which is a big step into being ready to play, if he is able to play and the offensive line is healthy for the most part, minus, if Bakhtiari plays, I get Smith might not be able to, but if the offensive line's intact and Rodgers is able to play, I see the Packers winning pretty easily. I see the Packers winning 34-21 with the Falcons getting a garbage time touchdown late. That's if Rodgers plays. I see things going back in sync because what I've heard out of Green Bay is in the limited action people have seen Rodgers in, he's looking sharp. So if Rodgers plays, I say 34-21. Unfortunately, if Rodgers doesn't play, I see more of the same from what we've seen these past few weeks. The offense having a hard time getting going, hard time sustaining drives, and the defense having a hard time getting off the field. And I see, unfortunately, Atlanta ruining any hopes we have left at the playoffs, beating us 24-20. So with Rodgers, I see us winning pretty easily. Without him, I see 24-20 Atlanta.
That's kind of bold, Evan. That's bold. What you're telling me right there, it kind of sent shivers up my spine for this reason. And I don't know, I'm a little bit older than you, but I don't know if you remember when Brett Favre severely sprained his ankle and they thought his career starting streak was going to end, and they didn't announce the starter until game day, and it was a home game against the Chicago Bears. I remember that. I was at that game, and on the Jumbotron in the tunnel when they were announcing the starting lineups, number 4 appeared on the screen. I've never, and this goes back to any playoff games that I've been at, goes back to any game I've ever been at. That stadium felt like there was an earthquake. That stadium was shaking, literally shaking, Evan, when Brett Favre showed up on the Jumbotron to go through the tunnel, because everyone thought that Brett Favre consecutive game started streak was over. There was no way he was stepping on the field. And when he showed up in that tunnel, oh my God. And he went out and that was that. So you bring the Rodgers scenario up.
Touchdown passes, I believe.
Yeah, I don't have the actual stats. I was actually trying to look while you were talking, but I wanted to listen and look. Sometimes I can't multitask, Evan. Sometimes I lose control of where I'm at there. So I couldn't find that game on.
I do remember the 6 tackles.
That was
6 touchdown passes. I do remember that.
I was at that game, and so you're bringing back, and maybe the football gods will be with us, and maybe he'll get medically cleared to play. And oh my God, would that stadium erupt if number 12 showed up in the tunnel on the Jumbotron? I mean, that would just...
It would erupt.
Man, I just may sit in my man cave with my jaw on the floor for the whole game. That would be great. But I'm actually disagreeing with you. I think they're going to win either way. I think whether or not Rodgers plays, the Packers are going to win this game. And I think it's because of what we talked about. I think the defensive line is going to be able to do enough now against a team that is pretty much evenly matched, if that makes sense to you. I don't think we're outmanned. I don't think we're outskilled. I think they've lost their confidence in the last couple of weeks. I think this is just what they needed. And I'm talking about the defense and the offensive line. They're not going against players that they're overmatched against. And you and I talked about this in the segment with Ted Thompson. Our backups just don't have the quality against the players they're playing against. However, when I look at this game and I look at the rosters, I think the Packers have a great opportunity here to actually gain some confidence, because they're not going to be outmatched. They're not going to be able to, and if they are outplayed, that's then on the players. Because when I look at it, I think the skill sets on both teams are pretty equal. The big glaring difference, though, is the Matt at quarterback. You got Matt Flynn, you got Matt Ryan. There is a big difference there. Don't get me wrong. But when I look at the line positions that you're talking about, I think we have a great opportunity to control the offensive line and to control the defensive line. I think we do that. Now, I'm not saying we win easily. I actually think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think there's going to have to be a good special teams play. As I was talking about, field position is going to be key. And so I'm making a bold prediction that Micah Hyde, returning punts, gives us a little boost to get that field position, and that's the winning score. And so I'm going to say the Packers win this game 24-17 over the Falcons, no matter who plays quarterback. So that's my prediction.
I hope you're right.
And I hope you're wrong.
I hope you're right, and I hope I'm wrong with my if Matt Flynn's a starter prediction. So,
well, I hope you're right on the Aaron Rodgers.
What concerns me too is you brought up the Matt factor. Matt Ryan is is obviously better than Matt Flynn, and then the other one is Mike Nolan. He's a defensive coordinator for the Falcons, and he's a crafty veteran coordinator, so I think he might have something up his sleeve.
Well, let's hope not. But with that said, Evan,
we're running out of time.
Well, and the thing is, and again, we record on both Blog Talk Radio. We do it live, but again, too, so we can post on YouTube. I run the iPhone, and then I just download that. So the iPhone's running. And I don't know what happened. It didn't end the episode. Normally when the episode ends, it knocks you out of the room. And I have to call you back so we can do our post Red Light Sports Ramble chat, which I definitely love to do. Today it doesn't look like I have to do that. The end episode didn't come up after the 15 minutes. Still has a yellow record button in the left. I have no idea if we're live or not, but I do know that we're on the iPhone and we're at 30 minutes. So that is a typical episode for us, 30 minutes. And it just said your episode has ended. Maybe it just...
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
I think we were live the whole time, Evan. But I didn't end it because it didn't have my little counter. So we will end it on the iPhone. And I'm okay with it, with live radio ending that way. But with that said, I want to give thanks again to the listeners, daily contributors with topics and pointers. We've got Ashley and Jean. They are, I swear, Evan, they are like, I guess we'll call them groupies. Groupies on the show. But with that said, we'll see you guys at the next red light. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.